Okay, so let's come back to the access specifiers concept and then we will go move to the encapsulation. So what is an access specifiers? Let's see here. Okay, so the same access specifiers will be called as modifiers also. Same access specifiers will be called as modifiers also. Okay, let's understand what is the point of access specifiers or modifiers. Here it is. So here the meaning of access, why they given this name is accessibility. So accessibility is the point of access. Here it is. And specifier is nothing but specify. So specifying is nothing but you're just mentioning whether it is accessible or not, something like that. Specifying is nothing but something you are mentioning. Okay, is it happens or not? Is it possible or not? Something kind of thing, right? So in Java, we have four access specifiers. One is called as public. Now this is what the public keyword we are using every time. Public class, public static void main. That public keyword point of view. This is the access specifier. Second one is private, and third one is protected, and fourth one is default. But okay, I'll come back and I'll tell you there is a specialty available about default. Okay, so what it is and all, I'll just tell you. So these four keywords are considering under the access specifiers or access modifiers. So that means the moment you are using these keywords at class level, these keywords we will use at along with class, along with variables, along with methods, along with constructors. Okay, even interfaces level also you will use these keywords. The moment you use one keyword to another keyword point of view, our accessibility functionality will change. That's why they given. Access specifiers is nothing but the point what they are trying to say here it is. So whenever you defined a Java class and you mention public, okay, so public class and something like whatever it is, student. Okay, so here generally we are using public. I'll tell you what and all you can use along with class level. We will see that. Now here I am using a variable called as public integer id, something like that. So if I am using public keyword here it is. So access modifier I used as a public. Okay. So the moment you are using public here, that means what's happening here it is. What is the point of access specifier or access modifier? Just understand the terminology first of all, then we'll see rules and regulations about it. So access specifier. So that means in this case, I'm specifying the access. So that means as a developer, I'm specifying I'm specifying the access. Like this variable, this variable, this variable is accessible, okay, outside 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 of the class also. Outside of the class also. So that means the moment I used public keyword in front of the variable declaration, what I'm trying to say here it is the point of declaring public here it is specifying like accessing this variable is possible outside of the class also. So what is the point of outside of the class here it is? So let's take here public new project. Okay, so let's take a class again, same class only, student class only, student count out, whatever it is. Okay, so if you see here, public, this is what I written, student ID. And what I mentioned here it is, I'm mentioning, I mean, the moment I use the public keyword here it is, what I'm trying to say it is, accessible. So I'm specifying an access like this is accessible from outside of the class. Outside of the class. So what is the point of outside of the class is, for example, let's take one more class, something like whatever it is, college application, whatever it is, another class. Simply outside of the class means from different classes. So the moment when you are using id variable inside the student, and if I defined a method called as public void get id, whatever it is, and sys out of id value is plus id. So that means what's happened in this case, within the class, within the class you accessed id variable. So we are able to access id variable within the class. So that means the same id variable whatever I created here, in between this class where you started the class, where you are ending the class, right? In between that, in between this class, wherever you want you can use it, because the reason is why it's an variable and the owner is student class. So within this student class, wherever you want, any number of times, wherever you want, you can use this variable and its value. You can access it like this. But the point here it is, when it comes to the outside of the class, okay, let's see here. And now college application is a second class. So I said outside of the class. So second class I define. So when I'm trying to access this variable outside of the class via same class object only, understand the point. Now what is my class? Student class. And I'm creating S1 new student object also I created. And see here, sys out of S1 dot variable name ID. I'm accessing the variable called as ID outside of the class. So ID variable I am accessing via student object only, and ID belongs to student only. But here accessing ID variable from outside of the class. So how you are access it, creating object and all that. But the point here it is, you're directly accessing ID variable outside of the class. Outside of the class means from a different class. That's all. Yes, let me execute and let's see the output. So you know that 0. Why 0? Default instance variable, default values are initialized 0 when you created an object like this in the GVM memory, and you are able to access the variable. Now see here, I'm making this variable as a private variable. So today what I did, I used a private variable. Now the moment I change it to private variable, what I am specifying an access in this case is, okay, so what I'm trying to specify in this case access is, so that means if I made a variable, again same variable as a private integer id, so that means what I'm trying to specifying here it is, I'm specifying as, I'm specifying as this variable, this variable should not be accessible by outside of the class. So outside of the class. So that means what? The same variable whatever we created, but only thing is we just given access specifier as private this time. So that means the moment you given the private, earlier you given public, and in the college application you are able to access it because of the public keyword. But this time you said like you are telling to the Java compiler, hey compiler, this is my private variable. So this is my private variable. So that means you are telling to the compiler, the moment if any developer written logic of accessing this variable outside of the class in any another class via object you will create for the student only, but you are trying to access this variable outside of the class, the moment, so what is going to happen this time is you will get the compile time error. You will get the compile time error. So that means what compiler is going to say in this case is this variable is not accessible outside of the class. So that means within the class wherever you want you can use it. The owner is you are the only owner person for this variable. So within this student if you return 10 methods and 2000, I mean assume you return 1000 lines of logic, and wherever you want you can use this variable. But the point of this difference, this one and this one, is all about when you declared as a public, then also same thing you can use within the class. But not only within the class, you can access same variable from outside of the class also. But the moment you declared a variable as a private, that means you are specifying that is not accessible by outside of the class. That's why this public, private, protected are called as access specifiers. So that means when you declared a variable, a class, a method with access specifiers, that means you are specifying the access, you are restricting the access, you are restricting the access. Okay, where and all it has to be accessible from within the class or outside of the class, or it is from the inherited class, from the same package classes, something like that. You are giving accessibility to that property. So now again, see here, the moment I made private, what happened in the college class? In the outside of class, understand the error. So what it is saying, the field student ID is not visible. Not visible. So what you got, the moment you made a private integer ID and you are trying to access from the outside of the from a different class, what you got, you are getting that is not a visible. So that means compiler is saying in this case, hey man, what is this ID variable? Student, you are accessing created object for the student and you are accessing the ID variable. But compiler is saying ID variable you cannot access from the your class. So the reason is this time ID is a private variable. And the moment again I'm modifying to the public, what's happening? So this is why it will be called as access modifier also. So that means I'm modifying the access of variable. What I am modifying now, I am making from private to public again, from private to public. So nothing but when you are making private to public is nothing but you are modifying the access of this variable. Like what you are modifying, you are saying like now this variable is accessible outside of the class also, outside of the class also. So from you are making from earlier it is private to only within the class. See whether it is a private or public, whatever it is within the class you can use wherever you want like this. But outside of the class point of view, the moment you made public, then you can access outside of the class. So see here, now again the error is gone. The error is gone. For example, even if I given value equal to and okay 199 whatever it is. So leave about the value. It's all about what you declared public, private before the variable. So again, let me execute it. So you will see the default value what you given 199. The point here it is you are able to access the ID variable. Now I made it as private. Again, you got the compile time error. So this is how you can make the things. Now second point, public string name. Okay, so something I'll take a name, whatever it is, it doesn't matter of name. So it's all concentrate on this level now. Now that means what is the point of these two variables I declared here it is. My point here it is the moment you declared like this, So what you are trying to say here it is accessible from outside. Okay, so in this case, what your one variable you declare as a private, another variable you declared as a public. So that means now in this case you are restricting like within the class. So some reason you don't want to give access to this variable by outside of the classes. So that's why you made this variable as a private. So the moment you made as a private, it is accessible only within the class wherever you want. In the student class, in between this opening and curly braces, wherever you want ID variable, you can use it. There is no restriction because you only created, you are the owner for that. But the moment it comes to the name, you made it as a public. I mean, the variable, this variable you made it as a public. So that means what you are doing in this case is within the class and as well as outside of the class also. Within the class and outside of the class also. Within the class as well as outside of the class also. So simple guys, in our home also generally we will maintain, right, public things and private things. So few things you will hide your private things, right, like gold items, all these valuable things. What you will do, you will not show in the, you will not keep those things into the living room. So in the living room, are you going to keep your private ornaments or whatever it is, money, whatever it is you are going to keep in the living room? Like every public can come and watch all those things? No, right? We will keep those things in our home itself in a secured place, and we will lock it. So that means by any chance, if someone entered into your home, I mean your friends or maybe they are your friends only, or colleagues only, or maybe your neighbors, your relatives, your cousins only. But still, why are you making all that? It's a private item. That means private. Why are you making private? It's somewhat secure. You have to make sure some security. It's something valuable. So that's why what we will do, we'll make it in a private space and we will keep it very safely. So nothing but what is the point of keeping safe? Not accessible by others is nothing but safe. When someone is not able to access it directly means it's nothing but a safe position, safe place. When people are accessing directly means it's not a safe. So until living room, every your cousins will come, everyone. It's not a safe place. Everyone will come. Okay, maids will come and everyone will come. But keeping in a somewhere sub position who is not accessible means safe. So and that is what you will consider as a private space in your home, right? So same point of view here also. So the moment when you will make some variables or methods as a private is nothing but assume you felt like that variable and value is a okay, no other class should not modify or no other class should not access it. You don't want to give unnecessary permission to the other classes and you felt like somewhat this variable and value only should be used by this class. Somehow this variable and value should not be manipulated or managed by the other classes from outside of the classes point of view. Then you will make those variables as a private variables and methods also as a private methods. Now see here, so you cannot access variable id, right? The reason is it's a private. So because private, but I can access name variable now. So see here, why name? It's a public variable. So that means you can accessible because the reason is it's a public one. ID, so that means in the same class you created two variables, ID and name, but one you made as private, one you made as public. So private one you cannot access outside of the classes, but public one you can access outside of the class. So that is why it is called as access specifiers or access modifiers. These four. So that means the moment you change it from public to private, that access specifying whatever you did is changing. Like from class within the class to sorry outside of within class plus outside of the class accessibility to only within the class. The moment you made to private. The moment you made to public means you are telling like that is accessible by within the class as well as outside of the class also. So the moment you made private, so like that you are making access from same class. So in this case, access from same class as well as and other classes also. So it's all. Now if I made again public, You are modifying the access. That means you are giving access this variable also to other classes also. So that means this is what. So this is what about the access specifiers. Now is it applicable only for the variables? Means no, for methods also. See here, public void get, like let's take like this string get password, return student 123, something like that. Now you felt this method is a, this method and this value somewhat you are using in so many places. Like for example, you called here. Okay, fine. Now let's see here what I'm doing is, and I'm going to the other class and I have an object of s1, right? So s1 dot get password, get password. So that means I'm directly able to access the method called as get password from other classes outside of the class. String value equal to, so sort of value. Now see here, the point is in the last line you are saying student 123 or whatever it is. So why? You are able to access get private get password method from outside other classes. From others class means outside of the class. Why? It is a public method. It's a public method. So that means you can access this method also from same class as well as outside of the class. Accessing from the same class is always common, whether it is a private, public, protected, whatever it is. Within the class, you will access it. Otherwise, there is no point of defining the variables, right? So you are the owner, you can access it, whether it is a private, public, whatever it is. The only thing is, it's all the context from the other classes, like outside of the class. Now it's a public way method, so that what you are able to giving access to this method, like from other classes also you can access that method because you made it as a public, so other classes can access. But somehow, some reason, some requirement perspective point of view, this method should be used only within this class, but you should not give access of this method to other classes. You don't want to share this method logic and or this method access with other classes. Other classes should not access this method. Somehow you implemented this logic, whatever it is, only for this class perspective, and you don't want to share this logic. You don't want to give access to this method to other classes. Then what you have to do? So then you will make as a private. So let's make again private. So that means you are modifying the access from same class and other classes to only same class. So you are modifying the access this time. Now the moment I made it as a private method, see here, you cannot access the method get password from the student type is not visible. Same error again with respect to variables also. What it is saying with respect to methods also same error. Earlier if with respect to variable point of view it said like not visible because of private. This time also get password method is not accessible outside of the class because it's a private method. So that means what you understood from here, it is the moment you are changing public to, okay, so it's all about public and private. All these things are specifying the accessibility of the content, accessibility of the content. So you are specifying like this method should not be accessible by outside of the class. That's why you made it as a private. If you made public, again other classes can access. Outside of the class, you can access these methods, these variables when you made it as a public. Similarly, we have protected and default, but the point here it is, so for protected is a keyword, but when it comes to access most specifiers, there is no keyword called as default, guys. Okay, so that means I'll give you one small thing. Okay, so see here, you didn't get any, you are not able to access it because it's a private method. So you cannot access it. Now I can access get ID method. Why? It's a public method. S1 dot get ID. So why I am able to access? It's a public method. It's a public method. So that's why I can access. That's why without compiler is saying, okay, now you can access get ID. Why? The get ID is a public method. Even if you made this one also as a private, that means again see here compiler is saying, sorry man, this method also not visible, nothing but they made it as private, you cannot access from this class. Again, why? It's a private method. So if you made again public, that means you are giving accessibility to this method from other classes also. Again, the error is gone. So this is how the access modifiers or access specifiers of those four is defines the things. But why we have four here it is, especially I'll tell you in a real-time perspective, most of the times we will define some majority of the times public classes only guys. Public classes and as well as methods also. And after that we will define sometimes private variables and private methods point of view. And a class should not be private. So I'll those rules we will discuss. Okay, a class is always a public only or default one, but not private one. You can define private at variables level as well as methods level as well as constructors level also. You can define public and protected and default. Very rare case we will define, but we will see what is protected and default. So I'll just display some diagram here. Access modifiers or specifiers, whatever it is. Hmm. If you see this diagram, okay. So what is the table? I mean, it's a summary table. So what we have to understand here it is. If you see here public point of view, okay. So the public variable point of view. So whenever you defined a variable, a method as a public variable or public method, so what it is trying to say is within this same class, you can access it. Okay. And within this same package subclass also, you can access it. Okay. So concentrate on this area. So what it is saying within this same class. Yes, we proved it. So public content you can access from anywhere else guys. So that means what it is trying to say here it is same package subclass. What is the point of subclass? Inherited. So that means you created one more class and that is inherited and under the same package itself. Under the same package itself. Then also you can access okay that public content. Public content you can access even though it is not there is no relationship between inheritance relationship between two classes also, then also you can access different so that means simply public is accessible by everywhere from every class within the project. Simply I can say like irrespective of relationship between the classes, irrespective of packages within your project, you can access from everywhere public variables and public methods, all these things. Now when it comes to private, what private is saying, what private is saying in this case is if you defined a variable as a private variable or a method as a private method, so within the class those variables and those methods you can access. That's what if you observe here student class level I declared id as a private, get password as a private, but I can access same thing in my class wherever I want. Get password id, it's yes I can access, but the moment I am trying to access outside of the class I'm getting the compiled error, so that means not allowed. So that is what private is saying. Within the once you declared a variable as a private variable or method as a private method, except within the same class, you cannot access anywhere else. See, no, 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 no. So it's completely opposite to public. Public is nothing but you can access from anywhere else, from other classes, other packages in the within the project wherever you want you can access. But if you made private, within the class only you can access, but not other classes. At any cost, you cannot access private content outside of the class. Now, the third one is protected. So, protected is a keyword here. So, what protected is saying is, for example, if you see here, protected string or whatever it is, just double marks equal to something like. So, now I define protected is a keyword. So when you define a variable as a protected, what it is trying to say here it is, see, I can say like protected is in between little bit public and little bit private. So that means little bit beyond the private, but little bit lesser than the public functionality. So in between that, it will act like, see here, public is saying like you can access from anywhere else. Private is saying like only from the class, but protected is saying somewhat extended than the private, but at the same time somewhat okay lower than the public functionality. So what it is saying, the moment you declared a variable as a private variable or method, sorry, protected variable or protected method point of view. So what it is trying to say here it is within the class you can access, even private is also allowing. That's fine. But only if some what flexibility, what protected is extending here it is the moment a subclass can access protected content. So what it is? A subclass. That means inheritance. Now that means if I have a variable A, sorry, class A, and I made a variable integer X, and this I made as a protected. So in this case, what protected is saying is a variable or method also. Okay. So what protected content is saying is you can access outside of the class. When, for example, see here, now I defined a class called as B, and here I am trying to create a variable and I am trying to access a variable, X variable of A. So in this case, what it is trying to say, same package subclass, same package non-subclass, different package subclass, but different package non-subclass. So what it is trying to say here it is, first understand this point, same package subclass. So that means you know the packages, right? So I written this under com.dilip it, both classes. Assume like that. So in this case, even though there is a no relationship, okay, so you can access X variable, accessing X variable is possible. The reason is why A, B both belongs to the same package. Same package, non-subclass. So with respect to this, it is accessible. So that means A, B belongs to the same package. Now, case number one, only protected wise little bit you have to understand. Now, case number two is what I'm trying to say here. It is A is a very, I mean, A is the same class, but B belongs to this time a different package called as com.xy, I mean, com dot something like Swiggy or whatever it is. So in the same project is same, only single project only. But here, what happened? A belongs to a package called as com.dilipit. B belongs to a package called as com.swiggy. So in this case, is it allowed directly means answer is no. So that's what it is trying to say. So you cannot access X variable, I mean X variable of A. The reason is it's protected only. What it is trying to say here it is, understand. Different package Yes, obviously. In earlier case, same package, same package. So both belongs to the same package. This time you written A class in this package, B class in this package, and you are trying to access X variable of A. But what it is trying to say, when you are having different package concept, A and B belongs to different packages. When you are trying to access protected content, if it is not a inheritance relationship, you cannot access directly. So no access. But the same scenario, if I taken like this, so the same scenario, if I taken like this, understand, different packages only, but what I'm trying to do here it is B extends A. B extends A. So the moment you made inheritance relation, packages are different only, but you made inheritance relation with A, then you can access. Then you can access. So now here you can access. If it is private, it doesn't matter whether you are in the inheritance relation, same package or whatever it is. It doesn't matter. Simply within the class you can access, outside of the class, whether you belongs to the same package or you belongs to the inheritance relation, it doesn't matter for the private content. Public content, whether it is the same package, different package, inheritance relation is there or nothing, whatever the relationships you are having or wherever you belongs in any package, public you can access directly. But protected is somewhat, that's what I said, beyond the private, okay, lesser than the public functionality. So what it is saying, it is allowing from the different packages. Simply a shortcut summary, what I can say is public is from all places and protected is little bit nearby public only. But what it is saying is, okay, it's not, it is from all places, it is from all places, and especially, okay, the class, whatever you want to access, the class is inherited. So if it is from the different package, if it is inherited, then you can access. So if not inherited, you cannot access it. Earlier, see here, that's what it is saying. So when same package level, whether you are having inheritance relationship or not, it doesn't matter. So the use case here it is. This is the use case we taken. And this, in this case, different package, non-subclass. Yeah, this is the use case we taken. And in this case, we taken this use case. Different package only, but you made a subclass relation. Yes, that's why it is allowed. Okay. And same when it is allowing, when you are having inheritance relation and from the different packages, then it is allowing. Then similarly, it will allow from the same also. So that means if I take an same scenario. So what is the context I am trying to say here? It is, this is the context. Yeah. So this is the context. So in this case also, B extends A. But only thing is in this case, both belongs to the same package. Inheritance relationship is there as well as both belongs to the same package. In this case, inheritance relation is there, but A and B belongs to different packages. So the moment you are having inheritance relation, simply protected is allowed. But the moment you are having protected, but there is no inheritance relation and both belongs to the same class, then only it's not accessible. So only one scenario. Now when it comes to default, little bit beyond the protected. So what it is saying is simply, if it is a default means what it is trying to say, within the class you can access, and whether it is a okay, inheritance relation or no inheritance relation, but both belongs to the same package, it is allowed to access. So that means in this case, if I am talking about the default point of view, what it is trying to say here, it is the four scenarios if I taken, and if I'm talking about the default, okay, what default is saying, same package, the rule number one is should belongs to same package, rule number one, and then also then you can access. If both are belongs to the same package, then you can access. If different package, second point is maybe the scenario is different package, then not allowed. Simply, if it is different package, not allowed. Different package not allowed. So that's what overall default is saying. So when comparing with default, protected is allowing when different packages are there. If inheritance relation is there, is allowing. If there is no inheritance relation, not allowing, when especially in different packages concept. But default is saying if it belongs to the same package, then allow, then it is allowed. If you belongs to the different package, simply not allowed. Even though there is a inheritance relation, not allowed when you declared a content as a default. But the problem here, it is not a problem. How will you define the default? See here, I'm taking one more variable, something like age or whatever it is. It doesn't matter of variable names and values. So if you see here, I'm defining default here. So what's happening? You are getting a error. So why? You know that access specifiers are four ID given as private, protected, public, and default. But the moment I added default, I'm getting some compile time errors. That's what. In access specifiers, when it comes to the default point of view, what is the point of default here? It is if you are not defined, if you are not defined any of public, protected, or private, or protected, then that will become default. So that means we don't have a word specific word default in access specifiers. So what you understood from this, you don't have a specific word like public, private, protected, like that. So in this case, I defined a age variable. Compiler is not giving any. Okay, data type I have to define it. Sorry. Okay. So the moment I defined a variable, here it is. Now let me give again default one more time. See, there is no word called as default. So when in this case, a variable is defined, but you are not given public, private, protected. So then it will be called as a default access specifier. If you are not given either private, public, protected, then it comes under the default access specifier. Default access specifiers. So why I am saying this as a default means nothing is defined. Now see here, void student info, whatever it is, I'm writing a method. Now see here, now this is a public method, private method, default method. Why I am saying default? You are not given any access specifier before the method. So it will become as a default method. It will become as a default method. Now see here, I'm writing one more class, something like XYZ, whatever it is. Now this is a default class. Why? There is no public, there is no private, I mean like that. So it's a default class. So the moment you are not defined anything, that will become as a default. If But you should not use any keyword like default, like similar to private, public, protected. You have three words. keywords, you don't have a default keyword for the default access specifiers. For the default access specifiers. So if you are not defined anything, then that comes under the default. Now in this case, int age variable is a default variable, default access specifier variable. In this case, student info is a default method because you are not defined private, protected, public. So if you define again something like protected or whatever it is, then again, this is a protected method, private method, public method. So if you are not defined anything, then this is called as a default method. So you are not defined anything. So that's why it's called as a default access specifier method. So that is what difference. Now what default keyword is saying is that means the moment whenever you are not defined same scenarios point of view. So when it comes to default point of view, what it is saying, you should not, if you are not using anything, default, 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 default. And what default is saying in this case is you can access same package point of view, same package non subclass you can access. The moment you saw both classes belongs to different packages, it's not allowed. Even though there is no inheritance relation. Are okay? And here what it is saying, the moment both belongs to different packages, it's not allowing. Simply it's not allowing. Both belongs to different packages, not allowing. Both belongs to same packages, it's allowing. So that whether you are having inheritance relation or not in between A comma B, but it is allowed within the same package. So I think I can give hierarchy like this. Private is very less scope. After that, default is less scope, and then protected, and then public. So within the class, within package, outside of the package, but inheritance relation from everywhere, whether you are having any relation or not. So like that, you have a summary here it is. Private means within class. Default means within package, within the same package. Protected is nothing but same package plus outside of the package also. But inheritance. Okay, so public is all. So this is how the access modifiers we are going to use. So just practice these examples, make some private variables, private methods and protected and also, and please make sure one time these things will be asked in interviews. If I declared a method as a default way method, then how can I access it? So what are the possibilities of accessing default content? Then you have to tell them like, yes, if from different class, whenever you are accessing, if the different class belongs to the same package, you can access. Okay, but when it is a different package, you cannot access. But if it is a protected, so you have to say all these permutations and combinations. So my point here it is, whatever A, B examples I taken, okay, you just practice on your own. One time you can do all these things as assignment point of view. Convert these all permutations and combinations are A comma B. I written whatever here as a pseudocode, just make it as a practice in your local and prove, understand all these points. So that's all about the access specifiers or modifiers in Java language. So tomorrow we will continue the encapsulation and then we are done with the object oriented programming principles. To understand the encapsulation, we need private variables help and all. So that's why we discussed access specifiers before that. Okay. So that's all for today. Let's connect on tomorrow with encapsulation. Thanks to everyone.